Hello and welcome to the second part of the fanfiction reading of I Scream by TheNeopolitan. I was doing things and I had to, alright. Just didn't realize that I was not in the right spot. We're just gonna get right going. Hopefully I can get, 4-5 chapters done in this video just because I want to get through this in as few videos as possible as to not take up too much time doing this one, and then I can, move on to other ones. Alright, Chapter 5. Members of the White Fang, Roman, and I made our way to the southeast. We went to Mountain Glen, the lost city of Vale, or rather, to the city underground. There we stopped the train and began the next part of our plan. No, the next part of her plan. I watched as three faunists moved around a large contraption. It was one of the many bombs that they were making upon the train. I would never admit this to anyone, but so many explosions made me nervous. I couldn't wait to get as far away from it as possible. But other than the fear of exploding, I was bored out of my mind. That boredom was upset when I was startled once again as my phone went off, but I quickly masked my surprise. I pulled it out, seeing Wolf's face. "Yeah, Wolf?" I asked. Though I was thankful that he called, finally something to do. "Hey, Neo, just checking in," he told me. "Anything exciting to report?" "Who's that Timber?" I heard another girl on the other end ask. "It's nothing. It's not anything you need to worry about, Wretch. Or Rach, I don't know how to say it," Wolf said. Meaning that it is something important," another girl said without much interest. "No, it doesn't, Mora," he snapped. I rolled my eyes at them, but an amused grin settled on my face. I could safely assume that he was talking to Raish and Mora. I'm just not going to say those stupidly long, dumb names. "Is it her?" a boy asked. I arched an eyebrow at no one in particular. "Her? What did he tell them about me?" Wolf sighed in exasperation. "It might be, Bolt. Just shut up and let me talk to her." I held back a giggle at his huffy tone. "It is Neo, isn't it?" Rach asked eagerly. "Most likely," Mora replied. "Let me talk to her," Bolt demanded. There was a scuffling noise as Wolf and Bolt fought for the phone. I couldn't hold back my laughter any longer. I chuckled loudly, startling the faunus near me. I quickly composed myself and gave him a cold look until he stopped looking at me and got back to work. Wolf cleared his throat and said, "Sorry about that. That was my team. They're just a bit excited to meet you." "Well, tell him that I say hello," I said calmly, knowing that they could hear me. "Hi!" Mora, Rage, and Bolt all shouted at once. "Hello there," I said to them. "Have you got anything for me?" "There's not a whole lot to report," Wolf said. I could practically hear him shrug. "That Mercury guy went up against one of the school's strongest girls. After a little while of no hard fighting, he just gave up. He didn't seem very strong to me." I remembered hearing about Mercury. He takes out threats easily and permanently. Believe me, he wasn't trying. Do not underestimate those three, I warned. "Noted," Wolf said. "There's another thing, a school dance coming up." "Be careful, they might try to do something then," I told him. "We're on it," he assured me. "You better be," I threatened playfully. "Talk to you later. Bye, Team Rainbow." "Bye," they all shouted. I chuckled and slipped my phone back in my pocket. The faunus boy looked at me again. "What are you looking at?" I snapped at him. He dropped his gaze immediately and got back to work. Time jump. I was right about Cinder and her crew making a move during the dance. Plans had been moving smoothly on my end, so when they called, I answered immediately. "Neo, they're making a move," a girl's voice said. I recognized it as... What was that? Fuck just happened? Anyways... Okay. "Neo, they're making a move," a girl's voice said. I recognized it as Raish. They called me enough so I knew each of them fairly well. "What are they doing?" I asked. "We don't know yet. Cinder has snuck away from the group." "Follow her, but not too closely, all right? She knows what she's doing. The last thing that we want is for one of us to get caught," I warned. Of course, Wolf's already on it. Share? Somebody spelt something wrong. guessing that's supposed to say Ray said, certain that it would be successful, but I'm still worried. She cannot know that we are onto her, and if she catches you, she will be merciless. Please tell him to be careful. You're worried about him, she taunted me playfully. I sighed and said, I'd be worried about all of you if he gets caught, and I teasingly added, don't you dare tell any of them that I said that. No promises, she laughed before hanging up the phone. I slipped it back into my pocket and began to pace. I may have been joking with rage, but oh my god. But the fear was real. Cinder and her crew would not hesitate to kill them if she knew that they were following her. I didn't even want to imagine what she would do to me if she found out that I sent them to watch her. But there was nothing that I could do besides wait for another order from Roman or for someone from Team Rainbow to call with news. I anxiously waited for Team Rainbow to call, but for 2 days it didn't come. I became worried, though I didn't dare let it show. Instead, I became angrier. I snapped at the White Fang members more, I paced much more, and I checked my phone constantly, but only when nobody was looking. She caught them, my mental voice fretted. Any second now, she and her 2 henchmen will show up and demand to know why. I knew that Wolf and the others were better than that, but the scenarios ran through my mind. Cinder could have killed them. They could have been caught by the people from Beacon Academy. They could be in an interrogation room right now, trying to hold back information about Roman, me, and other plans. The whole army could be on us in a matter of seconds. Is something wrong, Neo? Rowan asked, noting my pacing. Of course not, I bluffed with confidence. Aw, is someone afraid of exploding? He taunted, referring to the bombs located on almost every train car. I just narrowed my eyes and changed their color, moving the pink to the left and the brown to the right. My silent response led Roman into thinking that he was right. Roman scoffed at me and moved to the next car. Then it happened. My phone went off. I had it out of my pocket and up to my ear before it stopped vibrating. I didn't even wait to see Wolf's face before I answered it. Where have you been? I growled at him. I'll explain in a bit. Can you come to the front of the train for a second? Your White Fang buddies don't seem to like me, Wolf said casually. I froze in shock before I was able to ask, You're here? Are you out of your mind? We didn't have any other choice, he said defensively. We? Is the rest of the team here? I asked. Yes, I'll explain everything in a bit, but you need to get here before your White Fang buddies shoot our faces off, Wolf said nervously. I'll be there in a flash, I sighed. Phone. Sure. I opened up my umbrella and jumped backwards, almost as if I'd been blown back. Using my semblance, I teleported to the front of the train, appearing next to Team Rainbow in a flash of light. Really? In a flash? Wolf asked, rolling his eyes. He and the others were surrounded by White Fang members with guns pointing at their chests. Hi, Neo, Bolt grinned with a wave and glared at him until he dropped his hand. I turned to the leader and said, These idiots are with me. The leader nodded to the others and walked back to their posts. Then I shifted my gaze back to the team. You better have a good explanation for this, I growled at them. Chapter 7. Start explaining why you're here right now, I told Team Rainbow. We were sent on a mission to clear Grimm from an area near here. The huntsman that we're shadowing doesn't believe in calling for help, so we weren't allowed to bring our phones or anything. Mora said quickly and to the point. You brought a huntsman with you? Here? I demanded. Come on, Neo, we're not complete idiots, Wolf whined, but I silenced him with a look. I put an arcane mark on him. He's asleep back at camp. When he wakes up, he'll think we were fighting Grimm this whole time, Rage said before Wolf could. You can do that? I asked, my eyes switching colors as I blinked in surprise. I can, but there's a limit to what I can do. If I strain myself too much, then other things will slip. Right now I can handle keeping the huntsman asleep and comfortably use one dagger. If I tried to use two, one of them would falter or the huntsman would wake up, she explained. Interesting, I said with a smirk. Then they told me about Cinder's small move during the dance. It was small but effective. Apparently she snuck into the communications building and left a black queen symbol on all of the monitors and was back to the dance before she could get caught. Since then, they had increased security and started sending teams on missions. They also mentioned that there could be another team nearby. I'll keep an eye out, I told them. And what pretty eyes they are too, Bolt said. What? Oh, I'm guessing whatever. Giving me a flirtatious... oh, right. Wow, I didn't even realize that. Good fucking line there, dude. I'll keep an eye out, I told them. And what pretty eyes they are too, Bolt said, giving me a flirtatious look that earned him an elbow in the ribs from Wolf. It's time to get going, Mora said, looking up from her watch. We still have to clear all of the Grimm the huntsman thinks that we're fighting. Mora's right, Raish nodded. She turned to me and added, It was nice to finally meet you in person. It was good to meet you too, I smiled. Come on, Bolt, Mora rolled her eyes as the boy came to stand by me. He was even taller than Wolf and seemed to tower over me as I looked up at him. Maybe I should stay here and protect you, he told me. I scoffed and said, I don't need protection from a boy who had to have Wolf call me for help a few minutes ago. I didn't need help. I just thought that it would have sucked for you to have your friend knock out half your army, he replied smoothly with a shrug. I froze for a split second at his choice of words. He just called me a friend. Did they really think of me that way? Come here, you big flirt, Raish sighed, grabbing Bolt by his collar and dragging him away. Wolf came up to me and said, I saw that. Saw what? I asked, arching an eyebrow at him. You actually smiled. I smile all the time, I said, crossing my arms defensively. I don't mean that little smirk thing that you do. I mean a real, actual smile, he told me. You should wear it more often. Before I could react, he wrapped his arms around me in a hug. I didn't realize it at first, but I hugged him back. He pulled away, smiled at me, and moved to go after his team. Hey, Wolf, I said before he left. He turned back and looked at me. What the hell was that? Could you do it again? I wanted to ask, but all that came out was, stay safe. He grinned back, knowing exactly what I meant, and said, You too, Neo. Then he jogged back to his team. Alright, Chapter 8. The next time I spoke with Team Rainbow, they called my phone. I thought your huntsman wouldn't let you call me, I said, phrasing the statement as a question. He wouldn't, but we cleared away all of the Grimm in an area so we're back at Beacon, Wolf explained. Oh, really? I said in an amused tone. You sound disappointed, Wolf told me loud enough for his team to hear. We miss you too, Neo, Rach called. I chuckled as Wolf complained at her. Ow, ouch, Rage, that was in my ear, he pouted. Sorry, Timbers, he apologized. Do you have anything new to report, I asked, bringing them back on topic. Yeah, we called, Bolt cut in. Whatever, Bolt. Anyways, we called to warn you that a group of huntresses in training took a job to clear Grimm in the ruins of the city above you. When? I asked calmly, but I was worried. We weren't ready yet. We didn't have our next order yet. If we were found, it would be a big problem. They should already be there, but in the city above. I don't think they know about the underground. This is just a Grimm mission. Wolf replied. Neo, guess what? Rage cut in eagerly. Wolf's ears really are gray, and he just dyed them red to mess with me, I guess, sarcastically. Nope, she replied, her lips making a popping noise to pee. I grinned as I rolled my eyes and asked, then what? There is something else, Mora said, speaking over Wolf's shoulder. Oh? I asked calmly. But I wasn't really sure what else I could handle. The team that's going is Team RWBY, the other team who had us follow. I swore mentally. If they found us, they could screw everything up. I'll take care of it, I said confidently. I would have to. A lot depended on this. Do you need me there? Wolf asked, becoming serious. Coming? He knew exactly the position I was in. No, I need you to keep an eye on Cinder, I told them. Are you sure? I am. There's something else, I heard Bolt warn. We gotta go. Wolf said quickly, stay safe. You too, I told him. Don't get caught. Keep your team safe. I hung up the phone quickly before he could say anything more and went to find Roman. He was outside the train, and a girl with a red hood was running away from him with a flurry of rose petals. Roman scoffed at her and ran, As she ran, he flipped his cane, now holding the end of it, and he sent the hook part flying after her. It hooked around her hood and began dragging her back by a chain. Let's make this clear, Roman growled at her as she was dragged to his feet. As she was dragged closer, I recognized her as RWBY, leader of Team RWBY, the group of girls that had fought Roman before. We are not done here. Before he could do or say anything else, an explosion came from the farther end of the city. Oh, what the... Roman growled angrily. He turned to one of the three Faunus. standing next to him, and continued, "Perry, if you and the boys could take care of that, kind of in the middle of something." What is with this? The grammar is getting worse. Before it was like slight mistakes, and now it's like 2 words in a row that are completely wrong. Another explosion sounded, causing Roman to shout angrily, "What is going on here?" I squinted my eyes as I tried to see what was happening. I watched the next explosion along with flames come from buildings farther away. The White Fang members run from there to the main street. They fired at whatever was coming and shouted, "Run!" Chasing the White Fang members, and the rest of the Red Hood Girls team. The Cat Girl Blake, the Schnee Girl in all white, and Yang's, Ruby's blonde-haired sister. They were accompanied by a tall man with green hair and a small black and white dog. While everyone was distracted, Ruby jumped onto Roman's shoulder and shoved his hat down over his eyes. She was running towards her team before anyone could react. Roman pointed at her with his cane and shouted furiously, "Somebody kill her!" The White Fang members behind him opened fire on the retreating girl. Whether it was by skill or luck, she managed to avoid getting hit and made it back safely to her teammates. Roman growled in annoyance when he realized that the red girl was out of range. He grabbed both ends of the cane so roughly that the metal began to bend. He then pointed at Aphanis and snarled, "Attach this car," and shouted the word. Spread the word. "We're starting the train." "But we're not ready," the White Fang member protested. Roman jabbed his cane under the member's throat roughly, pushing him into the side of the train and off the ground. "Do it or you're finished," he shouted. Then he turned his attention to me. "Neo, to the engine room, if you please," he snapped. I nodded and grabbed his shoulder. Flicking open my umbrella, I teleported us to the train's engine. Roman stormed over to the control board and shouted at the faunus working there, "Get this heap of scrap moving this instant." Then he pulled up a little radio connected by a curly cord to the main console and spoke through the speakers. "Get to your places, we are leaving now." The train began moving almost before Roman was finished speaking. Only a few moments later, another faunus ran up, gasping and nearly out of breath. "They made it onto the train," he panted. "Then grab some cargo and get them off the train," Roman shouted. The boy nodded and ran back. "Animals, every one of them," Roman muttered. He remembered that the person next to him was a human-hating member of the White Fang as well. Roman chuckled nervously and told the faunus, "Not you, though. You're great." "Roman," I said hesitantly, but I masked that emotion with determination. Roman glared at me almost as if he was insulted that I dared talk to him. "Yes, dear," he said, his voice full of warning. Usually I wouldn't have spoken in the first place, but this was important. "I don't think our faunus friends can stop them on their own." He sighed dramatically and said, "I suppose you're right. Fetch the lieutenant and then pick a car. Do not let them stop the train." I nodded, gave him a low bow, and teleported. It didn't take me long to track down the leader of the White Fang. He was a giant bear of a man. It felt like he was twice my size. He carried his weapon on his shoulder. It was a giant chainsaw sword. I wondered how well I could fight him. A good strike or two from that weapon, or even his giant fist, would probably knock me out. But that was assuming he'd be able to touch me. My reflexes were much faster. Yet how many kicks would it take to knock this guy down? I pulled myself out of my strategies and focused on the problem at hand. Those huntresses kept getting in the way. They needed to be taken care of. Not to mention that Cinder would be furious when she finds out we let them get this far. Roman took the car in front of the engine car, the lieutenant took the one in front of Roman, and I took the one in front of the lieutenant. No one was going to stop this train. I perched myself on one of the rafters in my car and listened intently. Huntresses had taken the fight to the top of the train. I wondered if they would come down into my car, or I would have to go up there. Suddenly, the top hatch opened, and three of them jumped down. The one to the left was Blake, the cat faunus girl. The one in the middle was Yang, the blonde with the fiery gauntlets, and the last one was the girl in white Schnee. 3 of the 4 from Team RWBY. "I guess this is what we trained for," Yang said seriously to the others. I wondered where their leader was as the Schnee girl handed Blake rainbow-colored dust rounds, probably with that dog and the man with the green hair. I put those thoughts away too. I had to focus on these 3 now. As they ran forward, I jumped down in front of them. They stopped and looked me over, assessing how much of a threat I was. I stood straight and put my hand on my hip and my umbrella on my shoulder. With my height and dainty-looking umbrella, I didn't appear to be much of a threat, but these girls had seen me before. They still had no idea of what I was capable of. They balled her hands in a fist, growing angry as she remembered punching through my fake image. To help her anger, I smirked at her. I was not afraid of her at all. In fact, I was kind of looking forward to this fight. People who relied on their strength were fun to fight. You two go on ahead. This one is mine, Yang growled. I grinned wider. Oh, this was going to be so much fun. The other two didn't question it. Their mission was to keep moving ahead so they could stop the train. It didn't stop them. The lieutenant could take them. He might even thank me later for letting him finish the Schnee girl. Yang and I both took stronger positions, me assisting many footwork. Do I... Ugh! I was ready to move and her putting up her fists. She shot fire at me with her gauntlets as her teammates ran past. Whether she was hoping to distract me so her friends could get away, or whether she was hoping to catch me off guard, I wasn't sure. But it didn't work on me. It didn't work on me though. I gave a light carefree backflip out of the way and landed on my knee as Blake and Weiss left the car. They wouldn't come to help her now. I stood up as she stormed over to me. She was much taller than me, but I looked up at her with arrogance, aggravating her even more. She came until she was only 2 or 3... Did you write this with, like... How could you have possibly, like... Whatever. 2 or 3 feet away from me, trying to glare me down. To prove this wouldn't work on me, I switched my eye color. Now the pink was on the right and the brown on the left. She gritted her teeth, growing angrier still. She grew stronger with her anger, right? And I loved a good battle. Chapter 9. I matched Yang's glare with a grin and a look of arrogance. I had read the reports that Team Rainbow had made on her, and I had watched her fight. There was no doubt that she was powerful. I could feel her anger and strength in her aura around her, but she still wasn't nearly as strong as me. Well, in power and brute strength maybe, but I had years of fighting experience over her. I tilted my head to the side and waited for her to make her move. It didn't take long to get started. With a grunt of effort, she raised her arm and swung her fist at me. Too slow, though. With the movements too fast for her brain to process, I struck her in the gut with the tip of my umbrella. The blow sent her backwards, but she recovered it with a twirling motion. She growled at me in annoyance. I flicked open my umbrella and held it behind me, tempted to bow again. With a cry of rage, she lunged at me. She threw many of punches. I ducked under a few and bent back to avoid a few. Each of my movements fluid and easy to make. I didn't even move my umbrella from my shoulder or my hand from my hip. I sidestepped her kicks with ease, not one of her strikes making contact. I lost count of the kicks and punches that she threw at me. Yang jumped up and aimed a kick in my face. With almost no effort at all, I folded my umbrella and used it to block her kicks. She threw more punches at me, all of which I blocked with my umbrella. I grew bored of simply dodging. With one swift kick, I knocked her to the ground. As she lay on the ground, I did a backflip and aimed another heel boot at her face. She rolled out of the way just in time. She rolled to her feet and came at me again. I grinned again as she threw her fist in my face. Using my umbrella, I locked her arm and pulled it over my shoulder. I hit her in the head with the tip of my umbrella for good measure. This distracted her so I could pull her forward as well and lift my leg up and kick her in the head. The blow knocked her back a few steps. She was off balance enough for me to kick her in the gut and send her flying back and onto the ground a small distance away. I cartwheeled over to her before she could struggle back to her feet. She stood up, spun to face me, and snarled at me again and fired at me with her gauntlets. I quickly opened my umbrella and blocked the flames. She fired at me again, but I ducked under her arm, folded up my umbrella, and used it to knock her arm up as well as... Okay. Whop. her in the face, and once more in the gut. I opened my umbrella up and used it to block more attacks and even hit her with it open. She snarled at me again and sidestepped my umbrella. She then shot flames at my feet. Smart girl. I closed my umbrella, jumped back with a flip. Flipped backwards twice and landed on one of the crates across the car. I crossed my legs, opened my umbrella, rested on my shoulder, and smirked at her, my umbrella twirling slightly. I tilted my head curiously as she stormed up to me. Yang aimed a solid punch in my face. I used my umbrella to block the strike before closing my umbrella. I swung my body up, doing a handstand on the crate, and I used my boot to block her next strike, flipped out the box, did a front flip and a back flip, kicking out at her. She managed to block the first one, but the second one hit her with a lot of power and sent her stumbling back. She managed to regain her balance. I readied my umbrella as I saw her reload her gauntlets. She fired at me with so much anger and willpower that I had to use some of my aura to block as well. Doing so, I stayed with my back to her, leaving myself open. Thinking I was unprepared, she leapt at me, but I blocked her blows with my umbrella. I spun around to face her. Now it was my turn to attack. I swung upwards at her with my now closed umbrella. She deflected it with her gauntlets and tried to retaliate. I hit her arm with my umbrella and enough force to knock her arm back. I aimed to kick at her, but instead of simply deflecting it as I expected, she caught my ankle. She pulled me back with a great force, swung my body, and sent me flying across the car. I opened my umbrella to slow my momentum and landed with a graceful cartwheel. Good, she was learning. I didn't hesitate at all between my landing and my next attack. I wrapped my arm around Yang's neck and swung myself up and did a handstand with a single hand on her head, spinning around in a full circle. As she flailed around trying to get me off, I put a boot in her back and grabbed her hand. I then pushed my boot into her back, pulling her back. At the same time, I pulled her arm, yanking her up. I pulled myself towards the ground, pulling her up as well. The momentum helped me pull her up and flying forcefully through the air, setting myself with a cartwheel, coming back to a standing position. Yang hit the ceiling behind me and collapsed, unmoving to the ground. I held my closed umbrella with two hands inside. A good fight like that was fun, but the game was over now. I walked over to Yang's body. As I did, I pulled the curved handle of my umbrella, pulling out a long blade. I didn't like killing people, but this was my job. Actually, I probably wouldn't have been able to deal with killing anyone if it hadn't been for Nicholas Sleep Slicer. He was the one who trained me, the one who taught me everything I knew, and the one who saved my life. He was also the one who helped me create her. We'll call her Scary Neo, and for a good reason. To be honest, she even scared me. She was a sort of alter personality that Sleep Slicer had helped me to create in my mind. She was the reason that I was able to kill. I was fully aware of what I was doing when I activated Scary Neo, but I wasn't me exactly. I detached all my normal emotions, all my feelings, and became Scary Neo. I actually enjoyed the kill, the pain, the defeat, the sorrow, or the fear in someone's eyes right before I took their lives. I took a deep breath and became her now. My eye became a... My eye both... Okay. My eyes both became a creamy sort of white. I could feel a manic smile creep across my face. My heartbeat increased incredibly, and a scary feeling washed over me. I was thrilled. It had been months since I had last killed. Normally I would consider this a good thing, but it wasn't me. It was Scary Neo, as if giving these feelings a name made it not my fault. Whatever, it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the blonde in front of me. My little blade rang as I pulled it completely out of the umbrella and I reached Yang. I spun the curved handle in my hand so it stopped blade down so I could stop easily. My grin widened as I held the blade over Yang. The rush of power that came over me was unlike any other feeling. Part of me wished that she would wake up now and just see how defenseless she was. I raised the blade up so it would have more force. A flash of light and a sword swinging at me stopped my attack and deactivated my Scary Neo mode. I used the smaller blade to block the sword, but the impact still forced me back. I quickly sheathed the blade and looked up at my attacker. Oh no, it was her, Raven Bronwyn. She was a legend. I looked back at her. Her face was covered by a grim mask, with nevermore feathers sticking out the back. She was dressed in red and black, but the most concerning of her features was the giant sword in her hand. She sheathed it in a large container hanging from her waist. I knew it was filled with dust. It could create any sort of magic blade she needed. As she pulled the sword out of the sheath. It was all red. Its length could have been the same as my height. I was outmatched here. I glanced back at Yang one more time before I opened up my umbrella, jumped backwards, and teleported away. I quickly found the lieutenant and an unconscious Roman and teleported them away from before the train crashed into the last wall. It broke a giant gaping hole into the city of Vale. Our plan had succeeded. The chaos from the explosions and the gaping hole had led an army of Grimm into the so well-protected city of Vale. I teleported Roman onto a nearby rooftop so that it was safely out of reach of the Grimm. He managed to regain consciousness right as Cinder approached us. "What are you doing here, Roman?" she asked. Her voice was calm and mellow, yet venomous and full of spite. "You're not supposed to bring them for another few days. This is not what we planned." I lowered my head in respect for my boss's boss, but looked down to the city. Team RWBY was fighting Grimm along with Cinder's two henchmen, Emerald and Mercury, and a few other huntsmen and huntresses that seemed to be around. I saw Wolf and the rest of Rainbow below, and they looked to me for instruction. I opened my hands and gestured to the Grimm in a help-yourself kind of way. Wolf nodded and ordered the rest of his team to begin clearing out the Grimm. There were few enough Grimm and other hunters and huntresses, so I knew that they would be safe. I was not so lucky. Cinder was not going to let Roman and I off the hook for our mistake. Whew, and that is it for, me reading this. That is it for, me reading more of this. Next time we'll come back with chapter 10 and other stuff further than that. Yeah. So yeah, that's the end. Next time, whatever stuff, I don't know what to say right now.